Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to the Rantin Review Pro Wrestling. And yeah, this is a commentary. We're going to be talking about a lot of stuff in this video. Let's start off with the update. Jesus. On the CM Punk Elite situation in AEW. Of course, AEW Dynamite was last night. Quick note on that. They put out a pretty damn good show. Tony Khan addressed the whole situation at the beginning of the show. Got booed, but they did the best they could with a really crappy situation. They stripped the titles from both the Elite, the Trios titles, and the World Heavyweight Championship from Punk. We're going to have a tournament to decide a new World Heavyweight Champion. Danielson already won the first match against Hangman Page. No, that's not a punishment for Hangman. He will be going on to take on Chris Jericho next week in the semifinals. Jericho got a bye. And Friday night on Rampage, it's going to be Darby Allin and Sammy Guevara going up against each other. The winner will take on Jon Moxley in the semifinals next week. And the thing about this is, number one, I do notice that they're putting some premier matches on Rampage, which Tony Khan did say that they were going to get back to doing pretty soon. So that's pretty cool. It looks like we're going to a Danielson Jon Moxley finale for that tournament. So that should be pretty cool. But overall, I felt the way he handled it was the best he could have handled it. There's a lot of people that are just throwing a lot of criticisms. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But again, it shouldn't have gotten to this point. Should have ever gotten to this point. So he's going to eat that. He ate it with the boos that the crowd gave it. And he's going to continue to get those for the future. I think at this point, Tony Khan needs to take... if I was him, and I hate saying that kind of thing, but if I was him, you might want to think about taking yourself off TV for a couple months too. Maybe not be on these media scrums. Maybe not show up on Dynamite, and just kind of take a back seat and get the house in order before you're back on screen again. Now to the further developments of the fight. You know, I can't give it. This is what I did. And I don't know if anybody else in the wrestling media does that. Again, I'll talk about that in a second because I got a little bit of rant about that. But I reached out to AEW and to CM Punk, to people associated with CM Punk and people associated with the Elite, and said if there's any statement they wanted to give me, they can give it to me. And the reason I did that is because little history about myself. You're going to find out a little bit of interesting personal stuff about myself in this video, which I never share. But my minor for the first 2 years when I was in college was in journalism. And that's why I always constantly laugh at the wrestling media, because it is not journalism. One of the things you do in journalism is you look for sources and you get quotes. So I reached out and I haven't heard anything back from them. I don't expect to. And because of that, I'm not going to come on here and put up 5 videos every single day about the latest updates and newest details and this is what really happened in the Punk between the Elite and CM Punk, because I'm sure most of you watching my videos know this. Most of the stuff you guys are seeing out there from the people running their mouths is absolute bullshit. And you know it's bullshit because you'll watch one video from somebody you've never heard of before, but they're doing 8 videos a day about the thing, and they say one thing, but then leave out parts that you hear in another video from somebody you've watched a lot of times. And then somebody who's got a lot of viewers and somebody who doesn't have a lot of viewers, and former wrestlers and people in the business. And I watched about 12 of these videos over the last 2 days, and every single one of them are about as inconsistent with the story about what's going on as what's coming out, the few things that are coming out from AEW, Punk, and the Bucks, and so on and so forth. So I'm not going to go do that. I'll talk about some of the things that are consistent, and the only consistent things that I really seem to see across the board from what's been released, leaked by Punk and Ace Steel's side, what's been leaked from the Elite side, and what I've seen from various places on Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, etc. The only thing that seems to be consistent, that seems to be true, or most likely true, is that the Bucks and Omega and others went to CM Punk's locker room. When they got into CM Punk's locker room, however they got into it, there was a fight. Matt Jackson got hit by CM Punk. Nick Jackson got hit in the face with it. This is consistent across the board. Got hit in the face with a steel chair by Ace Steel, and it hit him in the head and blackened his eye. And Ace Steel bit Kenny Omega and pulled his hair. And that's the only consistent stuff in this storyline. Now, there's lots of other people reporting a bunch of other shit, and to be quite honestly, some of it makes sense, some of it doesn't. There's some, and it really, you can tell by watching it, based on who they like better, which side of the story they're taking and which pieces they're leaving out and which pieces they're leaving in, or maybe they just don't know or haven't done their research, which again is not surprising for the wrestling media. But I'm gonna come back to that in a second. There are three things I wanted to say about this. Well, two things about the actual fight. One of them is, personally, as a person who has backed these guys back when nobody was watching my YouTube videos, and have been through the entire revolution that I always said started with, I did videos, you guys have all seen that video, the 2011 to the present, the pro wrestling revolution, and how I always said it started with the pipe bomb. Because in the pipe bomb, CM Punk brought up New Japan, he brought up Ring of Honor, millions of people watched that pipe bomb a lot of times. So obviously they were, if you hadn't heard of Ring of Honor or New Japan before, or you hadn't really thought about them that much, by watching that pipe bomb video over and over and over and over again for years and years and years and years, you heard those companies mentioned. And not surprisingly, over the next couple of years, there was more attention paid to those places. And when people watched New Japan and Ring of Honor, guess who they found? The Young Bucks and Kenny Omega, amongst a bunch of other people who were all responsible, along with plenty of other places. Lucha Underground, I think, is responsible. Because a lot of people in AEW came from Lucha Underground. Luchasaurus, Phoenix, Pentagon, all those guys, I first saw them in Lucha Underground. So all of these people contributed to this revolution in pro wrestling. What that revolution essentially was about was that there was other wrestling in the world besides WWE that was entertaining and was good. In some cases better than WWE, in some cases not as good as WWE. But it was worth looking at because there's a lot of talented people out there. That was what the revolution was all about. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, along with Cody and Hangman and a bunch of other people, they were at the forefront of doing the legwork for that. I will say this as a criticism of CM Punk a little bit. I realized in the last video I was heavily more critical on Punk than I was on the Elite. I'll explain that in a second too. But Punk could have left WWE and gone to Ring of Honor and gone to New Japan, like he said he was, and he helped build those places up. But he didn't. He stayed home. He went to UFC. He did comic books. He did TV. He did movies. He left wrestling. The Bucks and Omega, who were in Ring of Honor in New Japan, again, with a bunch of other people, they did the work, and they're the ones that built it up. CM Punk mentioned it to get some people to start paying attention to it, but the people that actually built up those promotions were the Bucks and Kenny Omega at the forefront of that, along with a bunch of other people. So you get to the situation now, which the irony, wrestling reality is very ironic. For me personally, I consider that the revolution started with Punk's pipe bomb in 2011, and in 2022, it ends with his pipe bomb at the media scrum. Because as far as I'm concerned, that revolution is now over. It's done. That was the end of that story. It's an 11-year story. It was a lot of fun. It's over now. Because the irony of the two, of the people who are at the forefront, the guy who made it mention, as CM Punk said in his promo with Hangman Page, he chopped down the trees that provided the lumber for the house that Hangman and the Elite built AEW with. But they're the ones that built the house. And now you have those two entities that are responsible for this in this fight and leading to a disaster that still might scuttle the company. We don't know yet. So again, that's a very tragic ending to that revolution story, but we are now past that. And as AEW Dynamite did with their soft reset of AEW without those guys, I agree that the 2011 to 2022 storyline is over, that revolution is over, that Punk started and ended, and now we're on to a different era in the world of wrestling outside of WWE. Second thing I want to mention is there is a reason why I'm a little bit more heavy-handed on Punk than I am on the Elite. And trust me, the Elite are not, those guys are not saints. Omega said a lot of stupid stuff in the past about the rest of the roster. He said stupid stuff about, I remember doing a video about him saying stupid stuff about the Japanese wrestlers in New Japan, where he said they were lazy. The Bucks have done stupid stuff before, so that they're not the greatest locker room leaders either. But when it comes to what Punk actually did in the scrum, I'm going to share something from my past again. I mentioned a lot of times on this channel that CM Punk and I share the same birthday. I think I'm a year older than he is, but we were born, he was on the 26th. I'm born on the 26th. We're both Scorpios. And I'm a classic Scorpio personality wise, and everything I've seen of CM Punk over the years, he seems to be a classic Scorpio. being that we're in our early to mid 40s, I'm going to sharing this story is that when I was much younger, some of you may have heard me mention this before. And when I was in my 20s, I threw raves, I did nightclubs, I did theater, I did a bunch of live event stuff. Some of them I ran as my own business. Some of it I worked with other people on. Some of it I worked on for other people. One of those events in particular, and I'm going to be vague about this because I don't want people looking shit up and looking up people and getting because people are weird on the internet. But one of those events, I was working with a group of people and we had a meeting, and there was a guy that was working with us, and he would constantly make little comments in the meetings about stuff that I was doing, and he and I didn't get along, and he would like just make, just be a little smart ass. And then I would hear from other people what he would say about me behind my back and whatever. So I, was quiet about it for a while because I'm like, whatever. And then he just did it so many times that there was one meeting and I just decided, screw him and screw everybody that supports him and thinks he's cool and lets him do this. So I just kind of laid waste to him and then brought up some other stuff that was wrong with the production. And then that led to other people arguing about stuff. And what happened, because I vented into the whole group instead of just dealing with him, is that 2 days later, the two main people in the production quit because they didn't want anything to do with it. And then I quit because I could kind of see that the thing was going downhill and I didn't want to be on the ship when it sank, which the ship did sink. They canceled the event and we had to give refunds. Now, where this really comes into play for me being the age I am now, 20 years later, and looking at CM Punk, again, a person I share a birthday with and we're about the same age, I learned from that experience. The way I learned from that experience was that the day that I quit, and this is back when I smoked, and, anybody who's older and remember back in those days, you would go, back behind the building and next to the parking lot. And then another guy who was on a production team came out there and he smoked. And I thought he was going to be mad at me because I just said I just gave him my notice. And he wasn't mad at me. He was mad at the whole situation because he kind of understood because he knew the other guy was a bit of a dickhead anyway. He understood why I was mad, but he was just bummed about the whole situation, in particular because he was on a production team and he had been working on 3 weeks on the sets and he had put some of his own money into it, and he knew that the production was going to get canceled and he probably wasn't going to get his money back, and he was really upset about that. And that's when I felt bad. And that's why, even though it's not the exact same situation, I know somebody goes, it's a different thing. It's not the same situation, but it is. Hopefully, anybody with intelligence can see it's a similar situation to what's going on with CM Punk and what happened at that media scrum, and that's why I'm personally kind of ticked about it, and more ticked with him because he should know better. Guys that are of our age, of our temperament, who've been through things like this before, should know better. And there's a certain thing too. If you've gone to a bunch of different places and it seems to be that you have serious problems with everybody, maybe it's you. And you know what? That applies to the Bucks and Omega too. Because this is not the first time they've had major problems. Not to this level, not to the CM Punk level of things, but they've had their issues with other people they've worked with too. So hopefully these guys are going to learn from it. Probably not, because in order to be a wrestler, you got to be somewhat of a narcissist anyway. So they're going to blame everybody else but themselves. Hopefully some of them learn better from that, but we'll see. And plus the fact, honestly, with Omega, as far as this fight was concerned, from all the stuff that comes out, from all the reports coming out, it doesn't even sound like Omega should even be lumped in this, because either he was trying to save Larry the Dog and then pull Ace Steel off of Nick and Matt. And what the report was is that he was trying to pull, so he's putting his arm around, and then I can see that. That's the one thing in this that makes a lot more sense than a lot of the other shit I heard, that like he just started biting Kenny Omega for no reason. It's like, that doesn't make any sense. Some of it makes sense. The reports coming out of it, none of this shit makes sense. The one thing I will say though is that what's really interesting, and I think other people have said this too though, but the head of AEW's legal, the number 2 in the company, the young lady Mega, I think her name is, who is the head of the legal department at AEW, she saw the whole thing. Now, some reports say that the Bucks and Omega brought her, along with Christopher Daniels, who's head of talent relations, they brought her with them to Punk's locker room. Now, if that's true, it doesn't sound to me like the Bucks and Omega were going there to be in a fight. I mean, what? Okay, so they're going to go to fight CM Punk, and they're bringing the head of the legal council, this woman who's half their size, at the size of any of these people. What, for backup? Like, she's gonna get it? Is that why they brought her along? Or were they trying to do the right thing and then it got out of control? You know, a lot of people are talking about that. Well, if they were EVPs, they shouldn't have stormed into his room and broken down. Do you really see Matt and Nick Jackson breaking down the door? Now, I can see Matt Jackson running his mouth once he got into the room, and that might have started the fight too. I can definitely see that. We've seen Matt be a hothead, and you know, all of us have watched hours of these guys doing their vlogs and their real personalities, and you know, sometimes kayfabe, sometimes real, and you get a sense of people. And Matt Jackson does seem like a hothead sometimes. They even play that up in their kayfabe stuff in the ring. So they did it with all the inter-elite feuds, that Matt Jackson's the hothead. And it seemed to be true here too. I mean, I don't know. And that's as far as I'm going to go on it. Again, I can't, none of the stuff that I just said though is fact. And that's what brings me to my next rant. Of all the parties involved in this thing, there's one party that is not being called on the carpet for this thing, and that's the wrestling media. That's, which I guess I'm part of. That's us, right? Because we're the ones commenting on the whole thing, but of course not, are looking at themselves. So I might be the first person that's going to lump the wrestling media in with this, because as I said before, there are tons of people, I've never even heard of some of these people before, doing 2, 3, 4, 5 videos a day. Basically, like I said, every time Meltzer or Sean Ross Sapp makes a tweet, these people are coming out making another damn video. And they're not doing it because they're trying to report the latest news on the situation. They're doing it because this topic is getting a shit ton of views and they're making ad revenue from it. That's the reason they're doing it. And to give Punk some credit too and be on his side a little bit, his initial issue in the scrum, even though he handled it the wrong way, in my opinion, was he was ticked at the wrestling media. Remember, that's where a lot of this started, is because the story, the rumor about him being the reason Colt Cabana went to ROH was in the dirt sheets and on YouTube videos and on Reddit and Twitter and shit, right? So the people that reported that stuff, the wrestling media, did that. And now, again, I go back to the journalism thing. Did any of them contact CM Punk to get his side of the story, to put it in the articles they were writing, the videos they were making, the posts and tweets they were making, and say CM Punk we contacted CM Punk, he denied to comment on it? Because if they did and Punk didn't comment on it, that's on him. But if they didn't and they just ran with it, then yeah, if I'm CM Punk, I'm a little pissed at it. I'm not that pissed because I'd be CM Punk, and I'm like, I have 10 times the audience that listens to me than listens to any of these dirt sheets or YouTube videos, but Punk is Punk, and you know, think what you will about that. But we in the wrestling media, we're not none of those people are responsible for the fight, but we're responsible for spreading misinformation. In that case, where even Brian Alvarez, I saw him on a show, he basically said what I've always kind of known and what we all kind of know about the wrestling dirt sheets and the YouTube channels and everything else. Most of the stuff that's reported as news is really, and Alvarez said this, it was all over Twitter, it was all over Reddit. He heard it from some people backstage at AEW, and then they go and then write up an article and report it or make a YouTube video about it. And they all said, all of them said that they Cultaholic, well, it wasn't Cultaholic, Sean Ross Sapp, Meltzer, Alvarez, Russell Inc., all of those places, many other outlets, all of them I've seen have said that the Bucks are not where they got the story from. The only person who's saying that is CM Punk. But now I'm seeing other YouTubers going with that as fact. It is a shit show in the wrestling media, and it doesn't even, that's why I'm not going to use the word press or journalists, because they're not, and CM Punk is right, they're not journalists. Journalists would go get a quote from him and then before running the story and put his quote in the story if he gave it. Like I said, you guys are running around watching all these videos, because I did it too, even though I said I was going to take a break from wrestling media for a month at least, and then this situation came up, so I decided, all right, let me see what people are saying. And I swear to you, every single video from everybody I've watched says a different variation of the story. It is a mess. It is garbage. I feel like Jon Moxley in this sense. I'm embarrassed to be even be considered, and I can't disassociate myself from it because I'm here on YouTube doing videos about the story. But it's embarrassing. I feel embarrassed to be associated with this shit. This is garbage. This is why, and I've said, you guys know, I've said this for the longest time. Rumors, rumors, rumors. I always say rumors, rumors, rumors. If it's not coming from the source, or if it's not coming from a reputable news source like Sports Illustrated or something like that, or the New York Times, or if it's coming from dirt sheets and YouTube channels, I'm not reporting it as news. I'm saying this is a rumor. But even at that now, I'm thinking about that and going, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore either, because what we've seen and what could possibly happen. Again, CM Punk shouldn't have acted the way he is, and I'm even going to say this for what Wardlow did on Dynamite. Dude, don't be concerned with what we're saying. We're not doing these videos for you guys, by the way. We like to think that we influence you guys, but we shouldn't. If you're in the wrestling industry, you should not give a crap about what me or JD or Daleks Man or Solid Monster or Don Tony or Cultaholic or Wrestle Talk or Joe Cronin or whoever the fuck it is. Y'all should not be paying attention to any of the shit that we're doing. We're doing this shit to fill a niche for wrestling fans who want to hear more about wrestling, or hear other people who are wrestling fans who might know something they don't know, or have a perspective on it that they like or don't like. Talk about what happens in the world of wrestling in front of the screen and behind the screen, and what our thoughts on it. Some of us have historical perspectives, some of us are in different countries. But that's for the fans. It's not for you guys. CM Punk, Wardlow, anybody else, y'all need to stop worrying about what we think. Don't even listen to that guy on one of those channels today. They were like, well, it's sad that Wardlow's paying attention and using this to be mad at us for bad booking. You're right. He shouldn't be paying attention to any of the shit that we say. But that being said, we say a lot of dumb bullshit. And let me show you how easy this would be to do right now. And please don't repeat this, because what I'm about to say is bullshit. I'm just doing this to show you how easy this is and how this often goes with the wrestling media. Well, we know CM Punk was injured during the match with Moxley, and there are rumors going around that because CM Punk was injured, maybe he already knew he was going to have to vacate a title a second time right after he won it, and he was probably done, and they probably would never be booking him for a world title. He wasn't going to get a reign as world champion, because why would anybody put the title on him again after being injured twice now? With the championship, he was going to go away for 6 to 8 months, or however long it was going to be for him to recover from this injury, and he just said, screw it, I'm just going to go drop a pipe bomb on the whole company. Now, I can say that and go, it's a rumor, or sources have said, and there's no way of verifying that. I could say that, and it's total bullshit what I just said, because no sources told me that. But if I came on here and said that, without giving the disclaimer at the beginning of it, there are people, and I know there's about a couple thousand people that watch my videos, there are people out there that would take it as truth. There is a rumor going around in the AEW locker room that that's the reason. Now, I could get lucky and maybe somebody else is thinking that way, but that's a lie. I didn't hear from anybody else. I'm assuming what other people might assume and reporting it as a rumor going around about AEW. That shit is terrible. And there's a lot of people in the wrestling media that do it. And that's what CM Punk was really pissed off about. And that's one of the things I can agree with him on, is that we need to do better about not doing that shit anymore. If we're going to report rumors, we should at least make an attempt. Everybody's connected with social media. I'm about to make this video or write this article. Let me go say, okay, Wardlow, I'm about to write this article. Somebody said this about you. This is a rumor that was heard. Do you have any comment about it? And if he does, and I can say, I try to get a comment from him. He didn't have a comment on it. And it is rare. We say, I do think Sean Ross Sapp does that sometimes, but I rarely see that. I certainly never see it on YouTube, wrestling YouTube. Now I never hear that somebody saying we reached out to CM Punk for commentary and he didn't get back. I never see that, because I don't think they bother with it. I think what they do, again, they just see what Sean Ross Sapp and Dave Meltzer puts out in the Wrestling Observer newsletter, and then they repeat it. Fourth hand accounts of shit. I've changed this channel to not be about that kind of shit, because I just think it's unfair. I think it's scuzzy. I think it's being a vulture picking the bones of other people who are going through some shit right now, and then trying to make views and money off of doing that. It just feels scuzzy to me. But you know what? There's other ways we can do this stuff. And like I said, 2011 to 2022, great era. The revival of non-WWE pro wrestling. It's over. The revival has happened. We have AEW now. And now let's go on to the next era because we're wrestling fans. And we need to understand and probably get back to being fans of pro wrestling shows and not pro wrestling drama. But that's it for this commentary rant today. And I'm sure a lot of people are going to be mad about this, but I don't give a shit because I don't know any of those people. But I know you guys. So if you have any comments, let your voice be heard in the comment box below. Thank you guys for checking out this video. And until next time, I will see you here for more commentary on the Rant and Review Pro Wrestling. Have a good day.